Hello everyone. So in this video, I will be showing you that how you can change control property values in Power Apps dynamically, which means that not only at the design time or at the static time you can change the control property values, but also at the runtime you can change the control property values in Power Apps. So let's see this in action. So I'm navigating to the Power Apps screen, and the Power Apps screen you can see on my window. Here, let's start by adding a new blank screen. So I've added a new blank screen and I will give it a name. So let's rename it src underscore dynamic properties. So I've just given the name to my screen, which is src underscore dynamic properties. In every video, I'm always going to create new screens, as I mentioned in my previous videos as well, which will help us to differentiate between the different videos what we have studied in the series of Power Apps. So I have created a new screen. I have added a new screen, src underscore dynamic properties. Now let's add some controls here. So let's add a text label. I have added a text label, and let's add a text input as well. All right. So I have two controls on my screen as of now. One is the text label, another is the text input. And let's change the background color of this text label so that it can differentiate from the text input. All right. Now what I want to do is that this is the text property, which is complete text for this particular label, and this is the text input. So if I run this, you can see that this is the text input and this is the label. Now what I want to do is I want to have the same text, whatever is added in the text box or the text input should be visible in the label text property also. So basically I want to map the text property of this label control to the text property of the text control. It's very simple, and we have seen this in previous videos of mine of Power App series. So let's do it. And the very important thing to understand here, how we can do it. We can only do it if the data type of these two, if the property of these two controls is same. Okay. So you can see I am talking about the text property here of the label control and the text property of the text control. So we have to bind the text property of the label with the text input. So let's do it. I am in the text, or you can click on this property as well so that it will be text. I no more need this double quotes. Simply what I want is that whatever is my text input. So my text input is, let's say the control name is text input dot text. Okay. Now if I run this app, you see whatever I will write, training by Vipul Chen. Now you see, whatever I'm writing in the text box, it is getting to the text property of the label control. So that is how we have mapped the text property of these two controls dynamically or at the runtime. So I can write here Power Apps Crash Course or Training by Vipul Chen. Now you can see that whatever I am writing dynamically, I am in the dynamic or the runtime mode of this Power App. It is getting added to the label control. It's pretty easy and straightforward. Let's go back to the slide. Let's go back to the slide and see what else we can do with the properties of these two controls. So basically I have two controls. One is control 1 and control 2, which you can consider as the text input and the label control on my screen as of now, which I've shown you on the screen. Now these two controls have some properties. Now let's say C10, C11, C12 is the property of the control 1, and C21 and C22 are the properties of the control 2. These could be different properties, could be some of them could be the same properties, which we have seen. For example, the text property of the text input and the label control. Now what we can do is we already know that this C21 can be mapped to the C10 only if the properties is same and they are of the same data type. Then the properties can be mapped between the different or multiple controls. Similarly, C12 can be mapped to the C22. C12 is a property of control 1 and C22 is a property of the control 2. So that is how I just wanted to showcase that how you can change the control property dynamically in Power Apps. So let's see this in actions. Let me navigate to the screen again, the screen which I have created. So as of now, we have seen that I have added a text control, I have added a label control, and I have mapped the text property of the label control with the text property of the text control. Okay, that's great. Now let's do one more thing. Let's add a slider control. Slider is a very good control, I will say that, which helps you with minimum and maximum kind of things. So I have added a slider control, and the slider control always have two properties. Please remember the max and the min. So let's run this, and now I can showcase that how this slider control works. You can see it gives you some minimum value and the maximum value. Now what I want to achieve is, what I want to basically showcase in this video, that if I minimize the value in the slider, the width of the label control also gets minimized. And if I increase the width of the slider control, the width of the label control also gets increases. So basically here we are talking about the width property of the slider and the label control. So I can write here training, and let's close this. So basically, if I go to the slider control, in the slider control, I have some maximum value and the minimum value. So let's say maximum could be 700 pixels and minimum I want to give as 200 pixels. So this is the minimum and the maximum values which I have set for the slider control. And there is one more property, the default. Let's say minimum we have given 200. So default is, let's say, 250. So I have given 250 as the default value. Now if I run this, you see this is 200 is the minimum value and 700 as the maximum value, and the default property, default value I will say, is I have given for the slider control is 250. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure, or I want to bind the width of this label control with the value of the slider control. Okay. Now, if I show you, this is your label control, and in label control, we already know that we have something height and width. So where it is, where it is. So you see here in the size, you have width and height. Okay. And if I click on the width, it's a number. Its data type is number. You can see on the screen. And if I go to the slider, okay, this value is also a number, which means I can map the width property of the label with the slider value. Okay, so what we are going to do is width. I have selected the width property of the label, and I am going to say slider. What is my slider? Slider 1 dot which value? I have to give some value, right? So value, which is again data type is number, which is going to work now. So let's see this in action. Now, if I increase the slider, you see the width of the label control is also increasing, and this I'm doing at the runtime, which means dynamically. So I have mapped the value of the slider control with the width property. I can say width is a property of the label control, and you can see on the screen that whenever I'm minimizing the value and maximizing the value of the slider control, the width of the label control is also changing. All right, so that's all in this video. I just wanted to show you that how you can map the two properties of two controls, the property of two controls which are of same type in Power Apps. Thank you.